This is Laura DeFranco, holistic physical therapist and owner of Brave Healer Productions. I'm excited to bring you my new holistic healing series where you're going to learn from the experts what it means to live fiercely alive, mind, body, and soul. I invite you now to take a breath, relax, and feel the vibe of the words my guest has to share with you today. Welcome, everybody. Today, I have an awesome guest to share with you. What do you think horse racing and relaxation have in common, you guys? Well, author Linda Penkala is going to tell you Linda's greatest joy, excluding loving her 6 grandchildren, is helping others connect the dots to naturally embrace health and wellness, to thrive, not merely survive. She accomplishes this through being a licensed massage therapist, an author of The Pause to Relax, Ladies, an educator of aromatherapy, and a corporate wellness practitioner. And of course, you guys, I've got her hooked up in our show notes with all of the contact information. Linda, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Okay, listen. I've never spoken with a jockey before. This is so exciting for me. Like, I love horses. I love everything about that. I even did a little volunteer work at a rescue farm for racehorses once upon a time. My myofascial release crew came to one of those farms to learn techniques to help the horses relax. It was an amazing experience. But what I want you to do first is just share your story with us. How did you become a jockey and get into that world?
Well, it began with me being born in New York, in Queens Village in New York. And I always had a love for horses, being in the middle of New York City there. And I would ride horses in the summer out in Mastic Beach, Long Island, and I saved money for that. So I did English or Western riding then. And then when I was in college in New York, just 1 year in between, I had time before I went back in the fall. So I wanted to go to the racetrack and be a hot walker because somebody I knew was there as a blacksmith. So I went, and after a whole week of not getting a job, I stood there at the training track. And by divine intervention, my mentor, Mr. Root, found me standing there like I was in a candy shop or something, just staring. And he said, "You look small enough to be a jockey." And I said, "Well, I just want to walk horses," which is the lowest thing on the racetrack, be a hot walker. That was fine for me. He said, "Well, no, come to my barn 16, and I'll put you to work." And I was like, okay. So from there, I went to Saratoga and being a hot walker and learning everything about horses. And from there in the fall, this was all back in 1974. And then he sent me to a farm in Ocala. So that's where you learn about riding horses, breaking them. I was green, they're green. And you learn how to belly a horse and bring a horse up to having a saddle, riding, galloping, working. And so from there, I did the New York, East Coast, Florida, Saratoga, Belmont circuit. And then when I realized that I was ready to ride, New York is a tough market. And Lucian Lauren, I worked for, it's in my book. So I came here to Maryland in 1977. I began my career here to ride horses because I was ready to race ride. And so in 78, 79, 80, I was the leading female rider here in Maryland. And I got to go to Japan in 1982 to represent our country. So that was fun. I thank God I'm alive after that career. Very dangerous. I've broken many bones, fallen off many times.
Wow.
But I really learned how to use my hands, Laura, and refine the sense of touch with a racehorse. And how I liken that career to this career is that with a racehorse, my goal is always to relax that racehorse as a jockey. And so when you break out of the gate, I want to show your listeners, so here's the horse's mane, and you put your one finger around the hair of the mane here, and you wrap the other finger around the hair of the mane here. Then when you break out of the gate, you're attached to the horse, should the horse stumble and fall, which can happen, but you're attached to it through the mane. And so in the body of the race, my goal is to relax the horse and hopefully win the race. And so with that in mind, it's kind of similar to what I do now. After 33 years, I have a client And my goal is to relax that person on the table however I can and bring them into the present. I like to say I meet the horse or the client right where they are, and I bring out the best of them. And it does sounds like it's such polar opposite feels, but in a video recently I said I like to say I made a living, my both careers, on keeping my mouth shut. And basically it's not non-verbal communication. How many people can say that, right, Laura?
Well, I want to back up for a second. So I've got so many questions for you. Tell us one more time, what is a hot walker? What exactly is that?
Oh, hot walker just cools the horse down. So you have the shank,
Okay.
the leather piece attached around the horse's nose. So after a horse works, runs, and out on the track exercises, they have to be cooled down. So
Got
it's
it.
a hot walker. It's called a hot walker. And so then there's a groom. I wrote about all this in the book. The groom caretakes the horse, brushes it, puts the saddle on it. Then the trainer trains it. The owner owns it, pays all the bills. Then the jockey rides it, or exercise rider in the morning.
Awesome.
It's a
All right.
huge industry, huge industry.
Okay, so now I'm going to just go back to that piece, and I'm picturing you hooking into the mane and all of the language in your body that you're using, your energy, the way that you're harnessing your own grounding and centering yourself. Of course, animals are so sensitive, but when you talk about this, I'm thinking of an amped up racehorse. Like, I didn't even realize that you'd have a goal to relax the animal. Talk to me more about that.
Well, they are somewhat wild creatures. They are wild until we tame them and we ask them to subject to our will as humans, right? And that's what breaking a horse is, breaking their will. And so it's important to realize that they innately just want to run wild and free. But what you're doing when you have a racehorse is you're trying to harness all of that energy for the end of the race so that you could run the fastest the last quarter mile and not get burnt out the first quarter of the mile. So even if I was on a nervous filly or any horse that had a lot of energy and is like a speed horse, my goal is to A, know that because I know my horse I'm riding, and B, know my competition around me, but then also really relax that horse in the body of the race and really strategically place myself where I can break free at the top of the stretch. So it's very calculating. It changes every fifth of a second when you're riding a race. Very fast paced. So what I want to share is that you only have about a minute to a minute and 12 seconds, or if that's a distance, that's a sprint, 6 furlongs. If it's a distance race, a mile 16th, that's a minute and about 38-42 seconds. So I have less than 2 minutes to bring out the best of this animal, right? And then when I'm giving a massage, I have like an hour to an hour and a half to really help the person, support the person.
Yeah, so it kind of like life. We would like to save some for the end part. We don't want to be so burned out so early in our lives, body, mind, and soul, that we can't enjoy our best years ever, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why it's a joy to write, to speak, to teach women. I love teaching women about how to savor where you are right now, to be mindful, to be intentional, and to really pay attention to where you are now, because we've all been through so much. Here we are in March 2021, and we made it through the hardest year of our lives, right? Probably. And so how are we going to take what we learned, what we absorbed, what we were traumatized by, and move forward? And so when I wrote my book, The Pause to Relax, it took years to write and was published in 2019, 3 months before the pandemic. But I looked at all the stress out there and what women are going through. And now the book is so much more relevant now than it was back then, because we read every day about stress, right? I mean, when was the last time you saw so much mindful meditation and mindfulness on the news, Laura?
That's about time, right?
It is about time. But it
Listen,
took a pandemic.
You specifically talk about heart issues in your book, and I was very interested in reading about your personal experience and how you were mindful enough to know you were having a problem, and then understand that you needed to do something about it. Tell me more about that piece.
Sure. About 8 years ago, at night, all of a sudden my heart was beating really irregularly. And that was the first time I've ever experienced that. And it really, and I have a stethoscope upstairs. So I listened to my heart and then I called a nurse friend of mine. She said, Linda, go to the hospital right now. So I did. And they were trying to bring my heart rate back into normal rhythm. So they did that through an IV in my arm or a pill. And the goal was to have it brought down. So the doctor, when I was in the ER with my husband, said, if it doesn't come down, we're going to cardioversion her. And I put this in the book too, which is like the paddles that you see on TV, like, woo, shock someone. And that kind of freaked me out. And I totally freaked out. And I said, I think I'd die if that happened to me, right? I don't do good with electricity. When I was a kid, I used to stop watches. Like, I just don't do good with electricity. So, and things like that. So I said to myself, I'm going to pray. So they admitted me. And that night I prayed. I said, God, please get me out of here. I just have to get out of here. And then it came back, thank God. And the next morning, the doctor said, well, Linda, all your numbers are just fine. Your thyroid's good, your potassium, calcium, everything's good. So I said, well, what happened? And he said, you know what, Linda, sometimes we just don't know. And I said, oh, that's just not good enough. So I had to really, the researcher in me had to look into what did I do wrong? And what can I do better? And what was the problem, right? Don't you want to know? So I was curious. So what I found, Laura, through research and just searching my own lifestyle and my choices is I was messing up pretty good, not paying attention to stress, period. And this is me in the holistic wellness field. I do this for a living, right? And I wasn't paying attention to stress. So I would randomly get a massage. I'd randomly go to my chiropractor. I once in a while get acupuncture. But now I took up yin yoga. Well, this was years ago. But when I wrote the book, it was after I wrote my 9 pillars of heart disease prevention, because I wanted women to know, after I found out the fact that we are dying of heart disease more than men. And that happened back in 1983, which is sad. And heart disease is the #1 killer in the world. But my heart really broke when I saw that we're doing a worse job, because we want to believe that it's men that are dying of it, but no, it's us, because we have so many hats to wear. We have so many things on our plate, especially if you have kids. And so I said, I think women might not know this. And when I started to teach, Laura, I would ask, how many people know that heart disease is our #1 killer? And half the room didn't know that. And so then I really was divinely called to write this book, to really help educate women that it's about lifestyle. And doctors say it's all about lifestyles.
You touched on the tough year that we've had. So you talk about this kind of stress, and we all had a certain level of it, no matter what was going on in our lives. And then we survived 2020, and we're still going here. There's still a certain level of stress about this. And of course, I love that, that you wrote that book a few months before. And so now you realize it's like, sometimes I think the divine intervention is magnificent. But let's continue the chat a little bit about self-care. And listen, we see the words self-care and we hear people talk about self-care everywhere. This is a very hot topic, but it is so necessary that we really get what this means and what it means for our own daily lives. Talk to me about your feelings about self-care and how you've incorporated it.
Well, I invite everyone to really keep it simple, to really start paying attention. And it comes down to paying attention to your A, symptoms, B, things that are going wrong or right in your life. Say if you have headaches, say if you don't sleep well, say if many relationships in your life are just kind of like not as smooth as they used to be. So these are all little mini signs. So if we could just start paying attention to ourselves, and I like to suggest 3 little self-care tips each day for yourself. And I'm not asking you to go out and walk around your block 10 times. I'm just saying something as simple as 3-5-8 breathing that I mentioned in my book and I teach about.
I love it.
Inhaling 3, hold 5, and exhaling 8. So if you did that morning and night in bed, so just begin the day. Or you go to heartmath.org, one of my favorite nonprofits that I really talk about a lot. and learn about their quick coherence method of breathing and being more heart focused, being more present. And then a third thing you could do is just maybe write on a gratitude list at the end of the night. What are you grateful for? Now, we all have enough negative crap going on. We have a ton of that, right? But why don't we shift that focus into, being thankful and grateful? And I also suggest to women and men and kids to go for a gratitude walk, Laura. Just walk outside and be grateful. Don't walk so fast to get your heart rate up, get your muscles moving, and don't have a goal, because we all are so goal focused anyway. So I've never been a to-do list kind of gal. I'd rather have a to-be list. So write down, who do you want to be today? Who do you choose to be today? And who do you want to, emulate? Or how do you want to be? How do you want to share your light today? So, just be grateful and have a soul walk, and just have moments where you're shifting your brain into more gratitude than anger, upset, and negativity.
I love your tips. The breath work is a profound tool. I used it the other day in the doctor's office. I knew I was going to have a needle, and that's a little bit of PTSD for me. And I just talked to myself and listen, do the breath, and there's that technique is so simple and so powerful. And you can use it anywhere, which is brilliant. People don't even have to know you're doing it, right? And then the second tip that you talked about, the site, can you repeat that site again?
HeartMath,
heartmath.org.
HeartMath.org.
I love that.
Yeah.
HeartMath.
Yes, and they have a huge warehouse of information about how stress impacts our heart.
Yes.
And how our heart has a higher frequency and talks to our brain more than our brain talks to our heart. So when I learned this, Laura, I said, wow, that means we really have to be more heart focused and heart attuned to pay attention to our hearts. Because let's face it, if we're not paying attention to our hearts and letting stress, meaning cortisol, the stress hormone, which creates inflammation, which creates heart disease, if we're not paying attention to all three of those in our hearts and in our lifestyles, then we're going to be caught like me in a hospital with AFib. And so I learned a lot about my AFib, and now I don't miss going monthly to my acupuncturist, to my chiro, to my massage therapist. I do yin yoga at Shift Yoga in Fulton, online, virtual. Someday we'll get back. And I love Jesse's class with yin yoga, very slow holding patterns. And it's all on the ground. And it's beautiful, and it slows me down. Every week I do that, but I'll do a lot more in between.
You said something earlier, I wrote it down actually. You have to pay attention. And in my world, it's the awareness that creates a foundation for everything else that you desire. And so when you're paying attention, you're in the moment. I loved how you were talking about the minutes, literally couple of minutes you had on the horse. If you broke your paying attention for even a half a second, you're done. Right? So you got trained like ninja moves with awareness. I love that. And so now how you incorporate it for us, helping us understand that you have to pay attention first.
And so how I can equate that with riding a race is that if I'm not paying attention to where I am in the body of the race, like running close to the butt end of the horse in front of me, and so it's called clipping heels. So if the front of my horse's legs clip the heels of the horse in front of me, I'll go down, and that horse could go down. So it becomes a life-saving measure that I really have to pay attention, because
No
I
kidding.
could clip heels and I'll go down. And not that I haven't gone down in the body of a race, I dislocated my shoulder, but that's another story. But you have to be aware of where you are at all times in the body of the race. So if you just took that metaphor and put that on top of our lives, so life is a race. I'll end with that quote, but we start at the starting gate and we end at the wire. And it's the in-between. It's like the dash, that beautiful little dash poem. Life's about the dash. You begin, you end. What are you learning in between all that? And how is every minute of every second spent to love, have compassion, have care and to really be there for other people in your family or outside of your family to help. We all need help. I mean, people that are locked in, people that haven't had a hug in a year. Oh my God, it almost makes you cry, Laura.
Yeah.
People haven't been touched, and so we're such touchy people because we're in that field, but touch is so important. And so we need 12 hugs a day. And a lot of people are hug starved. We do. So if you have kids, if you have a husband, if you have people you can hug them,
Yes, or hug yourself.
Yeah, I hug myself every night. I hug myself. And like your heart is the extension through your arms, your love from your heart is extension. So I hug myself every night on my right side and I hug myself. And that's a good thing to do. It feels good too.
I love that so much. Okay, I wanted to spend a couple of minutes about the book, mostly, because I know that it takes a warrior to put your words out loud into the world. And I don't know if that was your first time being an author with this book or if you've been an author before, but I know you get it. You're nodding your head. Talk to me about the experience of writing this book and a little bit more about what's inside. And you guys, please, I'm sure we'll find this book on Linda's website, lindapenkala.com, and it's probably on Amazon too, right? Tell me more about that experience of writing your book.
Well, it was something I did all by myself. Now, as a massage therapist, where I'm high touch, not high tech, well, at least I was. I think I'm a little bit better because of COVID. It made me learn how to do all this, Zooming and creating PowerPoints and that. So that's a good thing. But back then, a couple of years ago, when I wanted to write the book, I had to say, well, am I going to be rejected by, 35 publishers, or am I going to do it, self-publish? Yeah. So of course I did that. And so here's the deal. It was really hard to do it all here on my computer. And with Outskirts Press, it's nothing but you only deal with an email person. So you can never pick up the phone. You don't have a Zoomy eyeball to eyeball asking someone a question. And to me, it was just a lonely thing, but I knew I had to get my message out. As bad as it was, and there were moments when I cried one time when they said, no, Linda, you can't use that picture because you have to have permission, you know how it goes, to use that photo. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I wanted to use pictures from my 1982 trip to Japan. Now they're on my website now, but within the body of the book, I couldn't because I didn't know where that photographer is now. So there were moments when I had to push through, but like I say, my why, and you know all about the why, you have to know what your why is. My why is to get my message out to women so that they don't perish from stress, because stress is the number one killer for going into heart disease, cardiovascular disease. It's stress. So I thought about that. And then once the book did come out in December of 2019, that was the next thing, is to have book signings and be out there. So I did about 5 or 6 of them, and then the whole world shut down. And then
I'm glad you got to do some, because a lot of people had so many cancellations for things like that. I'm glad you at least got to get out there a little before that happened.
I did, yeah, but it wasn't easy, but I knew there was a greater purpose in mind in the back end part of the stories, that it had to get out there. And it's a beautiful cover,
Yes, the pause to relax, ladies. Do you have it there in front of you? Awesome. Show us. Nice. I'm relaxed looking at the palm tree on the beach. I'm ready for that. And there's just so much awareness in this book, you guys. If you're resonating with this message, it's meant for you and it's time to read it. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a slap in the face because down deep you've been ignoring a couple things. And I think what Linda does beautifully is help you into that awareness in an entertaining but kind and loving way. And, she just says, hey, you need to do this for you, and you're important, you matter, like your self-care matters, right? So you've got the book that can give some pretty powerful solutions to women for these issues.
Absolutely. And especially for women that may be doing caretaking for adults in their family, parents, and have to do virtual at the same time.
Yeah.
Or they might be a woman that had to leave the workforce because over 2 million women left the workforce, Laura, in the last, year. That's a lot of women. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
it's a lot. And so you have to realize that work came home, right? Their work came home. Now you have all these boundaries that have been crossed, and now you have to make it work. And so even if, and I've read about this, that some women lock themselves in the bathroom or take a bath with a cup of tea, glass of wine, whatever, because they need to have that separation and to be having moments where they are truly taking care of themselves. Put some Epsom salts and essential oils in the Epsom salts in your hand into the water and take a hot bath just to kind of get rid of all that, negativity and just relax, because that magnesium really helps you zone out a little bit, right?
Yes. I made a couple of signs that are on my door, my closed doors for the rest of the people in my house, as part of my boundary. Like they couldn't just walk into my office for a time like right now when I'm recording or whatever. And we do what we can. Sign on the door when I'm taking a bath for sure. Do not knock.
Right. But I mean, these are all great little things, and some of them are really simple. Lovingly let people know that I'm taking care of myself, and mommy's not a happy camper if I don't take care of myself. But you know what, Laura, in the end, you're teaching your kid or grandkid or anyone that, wow, she is serious about this. And she never used to do that or whatever, but you're teaching kids, non-verbally, you're just letting them see that, wow, that's new. That's good.
Yeah. You're giving them a gift by modeling that for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've got a gift for our listeners. Talk to me about that.
Yes. A couple of months ago, I realized that I am not great at sitting at a camera. I just bought it from Amazon, though. So I bought that huge ring and the phone sits notes. So I haven't done a lot of like Zoomy things and put it online. I was interviewed the last couple of months, but a couple of months ago, I said to myself, I need to read my first chapter to people and get over myself of sitting there reading my book, looking that, and people are going to see me reading my book. And I said, and that to me, I had to push through that because it's not normal for me to do that. So for about 20, 25 minutes, I sat there and read my book to you. And then I was on Zoom and then I copied it. And that's what I want to gift to your listeners so they can kind of see me read my book. And then I really would love people to chime in and let me know if they think my voice should be the one that would do the Audible recording, because I haven't done Audible yet either. But something tells me I think I should be the one to read it, because no one could have the intonation like me, because it was my life, right? What do you think, Laura?
It goes back and forth. There's varied opinions about that. It takes a lot of hours to read your own book, and we'll talk later about it. I have some thoughts for you.
Sure. Okay, sure. So anyway, I'd like to gift that one first chapter, The Pace of the Race, and I do bring the pace of women's life, into the forefront. And then the other chapters, the second chapter's the hard heart truth. And that was the hard medical chapter to write. Then after that, it's about relaxation, my 9 pillars, and, welfare, well-care reform, I put it, is just paying attention to your wellness and who's on your wellness team. So I really offer that to your listeners of, do you have a wellness team? And if you do, who's on it? And if you don't, then maybe you should start putting one together, because it's beyond your doctor, absolutely beyond your doctor, right?
Yes, amen to that for sure. Who is on your wellness team, you guys? Do you even have a team, right? And so if you're sitting there listening to Linda going, oh, I don't know, I don't think, awesome. As a physical therapist, working holistically with clients, I very much understand what Linda is saying. And I have built my team over the years. And I could tell you who is on my team. I feel proud of being able to tell you, that I have an acupuncturist and a massage person and those people that we need to rely on to keep us rocking and rolling for this last part of the race.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. So Linda, thank you so much for what you're doing in the world and for being here to share it with us. Where can everybody find you? So aside from lindapenkala.com, I've got you hooked up. Where else can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram at the Pause to Relax, on Facebook, Pause to Relax. And my company, Optimum Health for Life, is Optimum Health for Life on Facebook. And also, I also teach people if you'd like to have mindful meditation massage or mindful massage and stretching. I teach those courses to a group of people, businesses, faith organizations, whatever, as long as people are willing to learn and to be there for themselves.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Linda.
Sure. I just want to remind people that my book is also on ebook format. And can I end with my racing quote?
Please.
So, life is a race marked by a start and a finish. It's what we learn during the race and how we apply it that determines whether our participation has had particular value. So hopefully each of you have learned a lot, and that's from Antoine Porsche, who was the Austrian car maker that created the Porsche. A Porsche, a car that goes very fast.
Yes, exactly. I love it, Linda.
Pretty funny.
Thank you so much. All right, listeners, you're so welcome. It was such a pleasure to chat with you today. Listeners, okay, lastly, just remember, your words, just like Linda's today, will change the world if you're brave enough to share them. Come on over to bravehealer.com, explore how we can help you do that. Until next time, you guys. See you soon. Love what you heard today. Don't forget to drop down and hit that subscribe button, you guys, and then join me over at bravehealer.com for just a little bit more healing badassery. Have a great one.